Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your Director of Fun and Games for the afternoon. Joining me today, fresh back from Las Vegas, it is Charlie O'Connor and Broad Street Hockey's own. I mean, really, she's just ours now. You've been on every show for like a week. It is Kelly Hinkle. Happy Canada Day to you especially, Kelly, but to all who celebrate.
Thank you.
And happy Bobby Bonilla Day. There is really no better day than a day we can laugh at the Mets. July 1st.
It's every day, but especially today.
Every July 1st is a built-in let's laugh at the Mets day.
Agreed.
And then, I mean, I guess we...
What's that clip? Like, this is when we all throw back our heads and laugh?
Yes. So happy everything going on. It is also the opening of NHL free agency. Lots of signings happening. The Flyers, of course, have brought back Eric Johnson, the internet on fire because of a guy who's going to play like a dozen games this year. But we'll start with a few different things. I think the stuff I want to start with is the... shit I want to talk about least, so we'll just get it out of the way.
Okay.
Well, we'll start with the players who did get qualifying offers. Zamula and Brink get QOs.
Again, unsurprising.
Yeah, everyone assumed that they were coming back. They are. Mason Millman.
Breaking news.
We have breaking news.
Garnet Hathaway.
What about Garnet Hathaway?
Extended.
Really?
Really, because that was something I was going to... All right, so guess what, fam? That is some pretty interesting news.
So that happened.
And this breaking news is brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So we have breaking news. Garnet Hathaway extended. That's actually kind of interesting to me. Because recently, I don't remember who I said that might have been on this show, might have been on it. I don't know.
We do so many shows.
There's just so many shows all the time. We did like 7 hours of shows over the weekend. I kind of thought, especially considering how much stock they are putting in this 2025 draft, Garnet Hathaway, an absolute trade candidate at this upcoming deadline, expiring contract. He's very much the type of player that a playoff team would covet, that playoff style. Every now and then he could put one in the net for you. What do we think about do we have the terms on the extension of Garnet Hathaway?
He got a $25,000 raise.
Good for him.
For 2 more years.
2 more years?
Why did we need to sign him immediately on July 1st, the year before his contract?
Well,
it feels like a...
It feels early. It feels... it's not that much money.
No,
whatever.
It's not, but...
But, yeah, I mean, he's 30, 32... Yeah, it seems like a little bit of an unnecessary risk to sign him early.
Well, what's the point?
Well, they really like him. That's the point.
I know, but...
And he is very good. He's a very good fourth liner.
Yeah, he is a very good fourth liner.
He's one of those classic guys where the hockey men love him because of hockey man reasons. And the stats people love him because by the numbers, he's also really good, as he was again this season.
Now, listen, if that fourth line is going to be Hathaway with Cates and Paling, that is a very good fourth line. Mm-hmm. If they're going to, as they did for a lot of the second half of the season, scratch Nick Delorier, he does bring that toughness element. He can fight basically anyone in the league. I can't imagine, sure. If we're playing the Rangers, if we're, where's Reeves? He's still in Toronto. We play a team with an actual heavyweight. Maybe Delorier draws in, but he does bring that element just in case. And, if a brawl breaks out, we're not undermanned, I suppose.
So someone in the Broad Street Hockey Slack, please like and subscribe, just made a good point. He could be the new Lawton if you don't have a Lawton anymore.
That's a fair point. That's a very good point. If they are going to move on from Scott Lawton, which a lot of us thought was going to happen at the draft, me included.
I didn't.
All right, this fucking guy.
I expect him traded at some point this offseason, but it's July 1st, and he is still a Philadelphia Flyer. But if you are going to move on from Scott Lawton at some point, he does bring a lot of those elements. They haven't used him on the penalty kill in the same way. Maybe not the scoring threat that Scott Lawton is. Not that he's, a 20-goal guy, but he does light the lamp from time to time. Garnet Hathaway a little bit less. But I just find it odd that we're re-signing a guy in his 30s when we're already kicking the can of this contention. Like, oh, yeah, the players who are going to be here in this draft now, we really don't want any of them. We want next draft. Like, it's already going to be a certain amount. You'd want him here for the rebuild, I guess. What's the thinking here, Charlie?
The thinking here is that they think he's a very good player and they want to keep him. Like, it truly, I imagine, is that simple.
We loved a galaxy brain, though.
We do. Like the idea, I don't know. I'm not of the opinion that this is because they're going to trade Lawton. I'm not of the opinion that this is like three-dimensional chess. They really like Garnet Hathaway. They think he's still good. They think he will still be good 2 years down the road. Now, for me, my point would be, why do you have to sign him on July 1? He's got another year left on his contract. Is it going to kill them if he drops off a cliff this season, or if he gets hurt and is a shell of himself for the 2 years on this extension? No, it's not going to kill them. It's $2.4 million. No big deal. It does seem to me to be a little bit premature. Is he that essential that you have to sign him a year early?
No.
I like him a lot. I'm glad we get to watch him on the team. He's fun. Mm-hmm. And based on his statistical performance last season, I think it is very possible that this extension is perfectly fine. That said, I don't know why you had to do it now.
Oh, when we get in the Konecny extension then? 3 o'clock?
That's a great question. It'll probably be as soon as this show ends, because that's how things work. I see we have a couple of super chats. I want to get to them before we get back to the regularly scheduled programming of today's show. From Anthony Kalidas. When you talk about draft recap, can we compare the floor and ceiling for Helenius and Luchanko? Yes,
I guess we'll get to that later.
Absolutely something we can get to. Thank you, Anthony. And from Dylan Phillips.
Yes.
I'm panicking
Thank you,
about
Dylan.
taxes,
Kelly's going to lose her mind.
Taxes and no trades and no ELC.
Trying to ban him from the chat. He's banned.
Kelly has been ranting all morning.
I've been yelling about taxes since I got here.
About the obsession that everyone on Hockey Twitter has about the locations that don't pay state income taxes.
Stop it. Please.
I just think it's a very happy accident that many of those places have very good weather and not all that much hockey media to bother them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not too many fans to bother them at the supermarket.
This is true.
Yeah, I think those things all kind of line up together.
I will say that, do I think that the lack of state taxes plays a bit of a role in these kinds of decisions? Yes. The idea that it is the driving force behind players going to these locations? No. People like to play in Florida because it's nice and there are beaches. People
and the teams are good.
And the teams are good. People like to play in Nashville because it's a really fun place to live. And as Bill hinted, if you don't particularly like being hounded by crazy fans or crazy media people, it's a great place to play.
It's tremendous. Not to say anything, listen, that Nashville fan base, for what it is, rabid.
Pretty good.
Yes.
But there might only be 20,000 of them. There's a good chance you don't run into them every day.
Whatever impact it has on the decision, it is not enough that anyone on Twitter needs to be talking about it.
I bet, if it's, all right, my offers are LA and Nashville and it's the same money, it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go to Nashville.
Maybe.
But,
I'd rather go to California.
And there's also the fact that, and this is something a lot of people don't talk about, you still have to pay state income tax.
Yes.
The other half of your games.
The other half of your games.
All the other games, you dummies, they pay income tax everywhere they work.
Yeah, if you play a game in Philadelphia, you pay Pennsylvania income tax.
And city wage tax.
That's why all these guys have insanely wealthy and very good tax accounts.
Exactly. It's
because
very
it's very
complicated.
complicated.
Say you sign, that just as say you sign in the Central Division, or you sign in the Atlantic.
Now we're really out.
I'm just saying,
you're signing in the Atlantic Division, so you get all those
if you
Florida
sign with
games,
Nashville, you also have to be it's not half your games because you don't play in Dallas. You don't pay in Dallas when you go there. It's just, I'm just saying.
The point,
but it's not a huge deal.
The point I made
before
the show was that all this really is sour grapes from mostly Canadian fans.
Yes.
It's mostly from
I believe
Canadian
that's where this
fans
started.
who are extremely pissy that they don't get all of the free agents. So when someone signs in Tampa or in Florida or in Nashville or in Dallas or whatever, it's like, well, they just signed there because the taxes are low. No, maybe they don't sign there because you, as fan
you're
base,
insane
you're
and they want to be
fucking
left alone.
insufferable and they don't want to deal with your insane media and your insane fans.
Yeah.
That's probably is
definitely-
part of it, much more so than the taxes.
That's
Yes.
definitely a part of it. My theory on how this whole tax conversation started is the whole John Tavares thing. It's his dream to play here. There's the fucking pajama boy pictures, like all that. It's like, well, how come we didn't get a discount on him if it's his dream and he was only ever going to sign here? It's like, oh, taxes. That's why. Not because Tavares just wants the fucking money, so he's not going to cut you a break. It's the taxes. What can you do?
Or because
That's
Toronto
my theory.
offered him all of that money, so he took it. Like Andrew McDonald, you can't get mad at him for signing that contract. They gave him all that money.
Yeah.
What was he supposed to do?
No,
Say
I was
no
mad.
thanks?
He could say no thanks. It's totally fine. Like, guys turn down contracts all the time.
All right, that's it. We're
All
not
right.
talking about taxes anymore.
going back
we're
to
done
the,
with that now.
So going back to the Hathaway thing.
It's over.
Just before, let's wrap the bow on that since that just happened as
Okay.
we were on. Look, he's a good player. He's a good fourth liner. It's not going to kill them.
Nah.
I am unsure of why you had to do it a year early, given the fact that there's always the risk of, like, he's 32 years old, I believe. I do not know when he turns 33 in November. So you're basically going to be, the contract will kick in when he is 33,
34 and 35.
about to turn 34, and it will end in a year when he is 34, about to turn 35. So this will last until he is 35. Is it possible he remains quite good through that time? Sure. He's a good player now. It's only 3 years down the road, but it does seem a little risky, unnecessarily risky to sign him a year early. I guess their thought process is we really like him. We want to have Garnet Hathaway as our fourth line wing for the next 3 years. Simple as
It's
that.
just one of those things where, like, listen, we talked about this all season. As a person who needs to watch 82 games, the Flyers are a more entertaining team
Significantly.
with Garnet Hathaway on the ice. I enjoyed Garnet Hathaway's minutes much more than I did whatever the fuck the fourth line was the couple of years before that. 100%.
100.
I like him as a player, my kind of guy. Absolutely my type of player. Just in terms of, like, roster management, I just, man, yeah, he's a real good fourth liner. Why the fuck can't we have a homegrown fourth line? Like, why does it need to be
Yeah.
Ryan Poehling, who we had to go get, and this guy make up 2/3 of it?
Well,
Like,
I mean-
we can't even
I mean,
come
Ryan-
up with
Ryan
this.
Don't give Ryan Poehling shit. Ryan Poehling's like 24.
I'm just-
You're begging for a homegrown player to become as good as Ryan Poehling is.
Yeah, sure.
I get Hathaway because he's 32, and you're like, yeah, why don't we get a young guy? Poehling is a young guy. You happen to pick him up on free agency rather than draft.
I'm just
I always
saying, if
forget.
we're not able to pull out fourth liners from all these drafts, what are we doing here? Like, that's all. That's all.
I don't know. I'd rather get a good fourth liner. If it has, like, if I have the choice between, like, getting Ryan Poehling, who I know is good, versus, like, giving Elliot Denoyer a shot, and there's a 70% chance he will never be as good as Ryan Poehling is now, I'm completely in favor of having Ryan Poehling, the definitely solid player, box out the probably not good prospect who was picked in the 5th round.
I just find it strange.
It would be one
that
thing
they
if he
have
was
to
31.
invest in free agents to play on the fourth line. That should be like, we have all these kids, we have all these prospects, none of them have a path. Like,
The only reason we're talking about this is because Briere felt the need to do it immediately. Like, if they had signed this contract in, like, December,
Yeah.
after a couple of months of him playing well, everyone would be like, all right, cool.
I would still find it strange that he's not a top trade candidate at the deadline.
Well,
I find that odd that a dude at his age, given our situation, isn't like, oh yeah, let's turn him into a 3rd round pick.
to be clear, he can still be traded. It's not like this contract is untradeable.
No, it's not untradeable.
He can still be traded.
It's just
Sure.
by extending him on July 1st.
understand it's not exactly-
It seems as if the intention is to keep him.
One would assume.
not to trade him in a couple of months.
Yeah.
One would
Like
assume.
on an expiring contract, which other teams are much more willing to take on, especially for
I understand that
a
it's
guy who
different,
plays.
yes.
I'm not worried about his game falling off because his game is like I get to the net and then stink face everybody
I
with
am
my
a little
glove.
bit. I mean, guys who are 35 years old generally aren't as good as they were when they were 32, and he's already just a good fourth liner. If he slips a little bit, then he suddenly becomes a bad fourth liner.
It's more so just about the way he plays. High potential for injury. He
hasn't really gotten injured much in his career, though.
But all it takes is one dude running him from behind because he's mad at him.
True.
And I realize that's everybody, but he's a guy who pisses everyone off. I just find it odd. Again, this is not a make or break deal. This isn't going to kill anybody. I just find it a little odd. All right. Like I said, Zamula and Brink get their qualifying offers. That was to be expected. Mason Millman and Wills Malik.
Who's a guy? That's a guy.
Who's been around.
Definitely real.
Yeah. Not
definitely know
QO'd. The headline, however, Carter Hart does not receive his qualifying offer. There was no extra consideration given to the teams with players involved in the Hockey Canada investigation. It was just like they're everybody else. QO them or don't.
Yeah.
And the Flyers, as well as the other teams involved, said, we're good on that. Carter Hart is a free agent. I realize this is side topic on this.
Mm-hmm.
That 2016 draft now is a fucking disaster. Like,
sure
that's the reason they are where they are.
Yeah.
The 2016 draft is a fucking disaster.
He ends up with 3 second-round picks. None of them amount to anything. You completely blow your first-round pick. Yeah, it's real bad.
That's why Ron Hextall ain't here.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's no way to know that this thing happened 2 years after they drafted him.
From a talent standpoint, the Carter Hart pick was good.
Yeah.
He's a starting caliber NHL goalie.
We celebrated the pick for years.
The result is
but
shit.
the result now is just like a completely lost draft.
Yeah, true.
And granted, again, this isn't like Pascal LaBerge, concussions, what can you do?
Yeah.
This is a totally different conversation, but this is just, man, what a wild ride the Carter Hart experience has been. And again, like as Flyers fans, we are not the victims here. No. There's a lot more going on in this situation than, oh man, we don't have the goalie we liked.
But we do a Flyers
But this is a Flyers show. This is crazy.
I give the Flyers credit.
Absolutely.
For cutting ties.
Yes, it would have been very easy for them to talk themselves into.
We can't lose his rights for nothing.
We can't lose his rights for nothing.
What if he's completely absolved?
Exactly, right.
What if the evidence, there's a video of him somewhere else? Like they didn't galaxy brain themselves into going, let's give him $6 million.
Because he's so good.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in our Discord that were very worried about them qualifying Carter Hart. And I wasn't.
Well, that's good.
Because the way that Briere and Jones have been speaking about this since January in terms of their future plans, like they weren't even paying lip service to the idea that Carter Hart was involved.
Yeah.
It was Sam Ersson, Ivan Fedotov, Alexei Kolosov, maybe down the road, Carson Bjarnason, and Igor Zavragin. It was never, we'll wait and see what happens with Carter. It was, we're moving on. I got the sense they were done. Then you add in the fact that the Flyers are crammed up against the cap. They've been talking about this for the past month. And if you would have issued a qualifying offer to Carter Hart,
that's it.
That would have been about a $4.5 million cap hit for a guy who probably isn't even going to be allowed to play at all this year. Suddenly, a bad cap situation becomes an even worse cap situation. So purely, even setting aside the fact that I think they pretty much made the decision that we're done with this guy, from a cap standpoint, I don't think it made any sense. I also think that, number one, I just don't think they want to be involved. This is very much like, this is an awful situation.
Yeah.
We don't want our name on this anymore. Look, if it turns out in a year and a half, 2 years, that Carter Hart is found not guilty, and not only that, like there is serious evidence that shows that Hart actually did 0 things wrong, he wasn't really in the room, anything like that, I guess they could theoretically then reopen the conversation with Carter Hart's agent and see if maybe there's a possibility of him coming back. But their view of the situation right now is he's been charged with something awful. And also, I don't know if Carter Hart was as forthcoming about his potential involvement in the
I'm
situation
sure he wasn't.
with the Flyers as he could have been. Because at the start of all this, I very much got the sense that the Flyers were not worried. And my guess is it was because probably Carter Hart told the people up the top that, don't worry about it, I wasn't there. And then over time, it maybe became, well, I was there, but I didn't do anything. And then over time, it maybe became, well, I'm not going to tell you anything at all now.
Right.
So when a player isn't forthcoming with you about something, you are probably less likely to trust them about anything.
Yes.
Which made it extremely even more likely that given the opportunity, they were going to be like, now we're done with this guy.
It's a choice that I'm very glad that they made because it allows
heartening.
me. Yeah, it allows me to, not have a bad feeling about this organization.
Like, and even if they decided to do whatever to retain his rights, if there had been some sort of special list again, like there was for the.
I would have been fine with that as long as it was an NHL-driven thing
Yeah.
where they all got thrown on this list, and the NHL basically told the teams, kick the can down the road.
Just as someone who has to do this shit, I don't want to talk about this.
No,
This
me
isn't
neither.
fun. Like
Fuck 'em.
I got into this to yell about stupid shit like Garnett Hathaway, and eventually, hopefully, one day celebrate something.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of fun.
Yes.
It's fucking horrible. So I'm glad that the Flyers made the decision that we can all kind of be like, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah.
It's no longer
Good riddance.
I hate to say it's no longer our problem, as if it was ever our problem, but you know what I mean.
We know what
I
you
think
mean.
people understand what I'm getting at
think
here.
It's now as someone who reports on and covers the Flyers, it will be nice not to feel like I have to write an article every time there's a new update on the Carter Hart trial.
Yes. That's you didn't get this to be you're not a court stenographer.
Yeah.
I don't think that was your goal when you got into
It's just
all
an
this.
awful situation all
It
around.
sucks, man.
And while the Flyers will never have fully washed their hands of the situation, because obviously Carter Hart is still a part of their history. They drafted him. He was their starting goalie for multiple years. They now no longer have to really pay close attention.
It's no longer something that they have to account for.
Right.
I don't want to go right into an ad from that. So you mentioned Alexei Kolosov.
I'm glad.
I wanted to just circle back to that. That thing's coming up again.
Yeah,
is he coming back?
Friedman tweeted it.
Friedman tweeted about
and
it.
now
but
he's
also
not
going to Dev Camp.
All I can say is that everybody I talked to last month with the Flyers and around the Flyers were like, we've got it resolved.
Okay.
I trust Friedman enough to believe he must have heard something. I know that Kevin Kurz reported yesterday that he spoke with somebody close to Kolosov at the draft, and that guy said, yeah, he's coming. So I don't know. I don't know. I can only... I don't want this to come off as sounding frustrated, but there's only so many hours in the day I can't report on everything. All I can say is last month the Flyers didn't seem worried.
Okay.
And
it's good to know.
The show's going on. Maybe something has happened. Maybe it hasn't. But you have the two goalies at the NHL level. You have Cal Peterson. You need 4.
If this doesn't,
they don't have another one.
If this doesn't work out in the Flyers' way, I don't think it has anything just to break the speculation. Now, it has nothing to do with the idea of I want to be guaranteed an NHL spot, and by them signing Fedotov, it blocks me. It has zero to do with that. It would have everything to do with Kolosov deciding that he doesn't want to play in North America because he doesn't want to leave home.
Well, and
It would be a homesickness type of thing.
The discourse is going to be insufferable if this kid decides to leave because of the Gauthier thing. And now it's going to be Danny Briere can't keep players. No one wants to play for the Flyers. It's going to be so stupid. And if it's anything, like Charlie said, this is a 22, 21? How old is he?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Some young age man who misses his mom and borscht or whatever they eat in Russia. He just wants to go home.
I mean, and to be clear, I was told the Flyers are planning to do whatever they can to ease his transition. One thing I did hear, and I don't know if this is truly what is going to happen, but I know it's something they brought up. They brought up the possibility of we'll get your girlfriend to come over too, so you have someone that
nice.
you can live with and someone who you're comfortable with. The Flyers, by my understanding, are doing everything they can to make this guy feel comfortable.
I'm just I think about the Bob situation. He could have probably helped, 15 years ago, but also talking about to be a professional hockey player, and no.
Don't bring
her over.
over.
Bring my mom over or something.
Although, how much are you pulling in Allentown?
Maybe for a visit. That cracks me up. Let's get to this super chat. From Nick DeCristo. Why haven't they offered any sort of jersey exchange for Carter Hart jerseys?
I mean, money probably.
I don't
even think it's the money. It's just there's probably some legal.
Probably
if you as an organization, maybe they could do something now. Because somebody asked me this yesterday on Twitter.
He's no longer part of the team.
Maybe you do something now because he's no longer part of the organization. If you had done it before while he was still part of the organization, you are essentially telling people you think he's guilty.
Yeah,
that's when you get lawyers involved where they're like, this is defamation.
Yeah.
He hasn't been found guilty of anything. Now, maybe now that he's not part of the organization, you have a little bit more leeway, but there still could be lawyers involved. Because again, you're saying that you think that this situation warrants us basically erasing him from the history of our organization, and we will pay for people to do that. I just don't think it's as simple as like organizational goodwill here. There are other factors you need to account for.
And
if they are able to do it, that's cool, and I think it'd be a very nice gesture for the fans. I'm just saying that don't necessarily expect it.
The only time I can remember a team doing that is Michael Vick with Atlanta. And I have to believe it was after he was convicted.
I think it was probably after he was convicted.
Maybe I'm incorrect about this.
Yeah.
But that time frame was he was on trial while he was I'm gonna be found not guilty of this. He's at the draft talking to the commissioner.
Yeah.
As it's I'm cool. Everything's fine. So I wonder about the time frame of when they'd be able to do it. I have to believe that happened after the conviction. But
I would think so.
I can't think of another time where that was done, but I would like to see them do it if they're able to.
It's just these things aren't, I think, as easy and cut and dry as fans would like them to be. It's not just a choice that they can make. All of this shit is tied up in PA stuff and lawyer stuff and all kinds of stuff that we don't think about because it's not our job to. So... it is what it is.
And this other super chat over here from, what's that?
Anima Hems.
Nothing infuriates Flyers internet fans more than the contract of the fourth liners and 7th, 8th D-men who barely play and account for about 5% of the cap.
Yeah, it's true.
That's true, it's true. Because
it matters.
It's not as if they've signed anyone else in recent history. These are the guys that they signed. So people are going to have opinions about these guys.
I do agree that the internet is overly focused on the moves that don't matter that much. But I will acknowledge that every move does matter to a degree.
It does.
So there's that.
All right, let me get caught up here a second. Let me start out by telling you about our friends at Coors Light.
Hey.
Listen, between work, social media, and the choices life throws our way, it's no wonder we're more worked up than ever. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Why not turn to rained out barbecue into a karaoke house party? Or after a tough loss, settle the score with an ice cold peace offering. Make the choice to choose chill. Then reach for a Coors Light. It's mountain cold refreshment. Listen, man, I know this team drives us all insane. We're all probably a little more tense than we need to be about this team, and that's why sometimes even I need to choose to chill, and there's no better way to chill than with an ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about, is this goaltender coming over? Did they make the right draft picks? Whatever it might be, you need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your hockey team is on fire, and when isn't it? Sometimes you just got to chill. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And now we get to the draft. What a time it was at Chickies and Pete's in South Philly. We had an awesome draft party along with our friends at Broad Street Hockey. Gritty was there. It was tremendous. He made me chug an ice cold Coors Light. It was a nice experience. Yeah. He squeaked at me. It was very funny.
Yeah, it was very funny.
But Charlie in Las Vegas, the Flyers, of course, are not able to trade up to the 5th, the 7th, whatever they were working on. The 4th, I think, was reported with Columbus. And they eventually trade back one spot. They're sitting at 12. Zeev Williams still on the board. They go, we're good. We'll take a 3rd rounder next year to move down to 13. And then go a little off the board with Jett Luchanko. Now, Charlie, we played yesterday or Saturday, whatever it was. your
Days unreal.
Yeah, we played your scouting, your pre-draft scouting video for Jett Luchanko, and seems like there's some positives there.
I like
Dude
him as
has
a
a ton of
prospect.
speed. We talked about his age. He doesn't turn 18 until like August 21st, I believe. So he's a very young prospect. Has some puck skills on an awful juniors team.
Yeah, it's not good.
What did you make of the Jett Luchanko pick?
Well, as I said, I like him as a prospect. I had him 20 on my board, and I like him as a prospect. I think the upside is there. I like the physical tools. I like the player. He's a fun player. I really, really love Zeev Buium. He was the number 3 player on my draft board. I think he's going to be really, really good. So for me personally, as someone who has watched these prospects and someone who I certainly would never consider myself to be a draft expert. I'm certainly not a scout, but I did research before the draft, about 2 months worth of research, and I came away very excited about Buium's potential. I personally disagree with what they did because I would have ran up to that podium and picked Zeev Buium at number 12. I would not have traded down. And they didn't do that. So for me personally, it's disappointing because I think Buium is going to be real good. However, I am not of the opinion that my evaluation of this player and these players as a whole is infallible. I'm not a draft expert. I don't know. They clearly were of the opinion that Buium and Luchanko, for them, were around the same tier quality of player. And their view is that if we're looking at 2 guys who we have rated around the same, given our organizational weakness at center, and given the fact that we already have quite a few smallish defensemen that are in our projected top 4 for the foreseeable future, we're going to say Ty goes to the center. We're going to go for Jett Luchanko. So I understand where they're coming from. I disagree with their valuation of Buium. Sure. I think Buium is better than they think he is. However, we're not going to know who's right until 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I am not of the opinion that I am the smartest hockey mind in the world. And just because I think Buium's going to be a stud and I think Luchanko is probably just going to be good, that's definitely going to be the case. And I'm 100% right and they're 100% wrong. I personally would have taken Buium, but I'm not necessarily right.
One thing I do want to point out is those comments that they made explaining the Buium passing on him. A lot of people, and not just Flyers fans, but like national media people, I saw a lot of people interpreting that quote as Danny Briere doesn't like small players.
Well, of course, it's Twitter.
Which is absolutely not what he said or what he meant.
They've been saying literally since the day that Keith Jones got hired that they think it's important for there to be size on the defense. Mm-hmm. And it's actually kind of funny that the way it's been is that they traded for Jamie Drysdale. That the guy on the blue line who they like the most is Cam York, who's small. That's why you're like, okay, this is probably not the decor they ideally want to build. Mm-hmm. And they're building it because of just the way things have played out. That's why it was definitely going to play a role in their draft decision. If they're going to take a guy 12, that guy is almost certainly in their mind going to be penciled into the future. They probably weren't ideally going to be taking another smallish defenseman unless they looked at that defenseman and they said, this guy, we think he's going to be a number 1 game-changing defenseman. I think Buium is that, so I would have taken him. They don't, so they didn't. And that's what it boils down to.
Fair enough.
Oh, Danny also told us, I think at that pre-draft presser he did, that diversity in the
which again, yes,
in the
diversity in the organization.
It's not so much that he doesn't like small defensemen; it's that we have some.
Right.
That said, all right, if you want to bring up Jamie Drysdale, that's fine because he is a slight guy. I wouldn't necessarily call Cam York small, although he is under 6 foot. He's 5'11" and almost 200 pounds. And I gotta believe once he develops a little bit more, he's going to be bigger.
And I don't think Buium's going to be small either. He's just not big.
But I just think if you're accounting and we have Emile Andre, one is considerably better than the other.
They really like Emile Andre, and that should serve as a reminder that they really like him. They view him as part of the future.
I guess so. I just think of then why isn't he here? He's not. He made the team last year, got sent down, and there ain't no path for him coming up this year.
Well, there are always going to be injuries. They could make a Ristolainen trade at some point. There's a lot of ways for him to come up here. It's just there isn't like we're penciling you into a spot, because I think they believe he could benefit from another year down in the minors, because they personally, and this is another thing they probably disagree with you on, they personally look at it as there's nothing wrong with overcooking a guy in the minors. There's always more things he can learn down there. We don't need to rush him. That's their view. Again, you can disagree with it, but that's their view.
History disagrees with it.
Speaking of history, I just
Who are these players that have come up from the Phantoms and been great for us?
Okay, well, the Flyers.
I just feel like
there's Duncan Keith, who was down there for years and then became a Hall of Famer.
He was in the AHL for 2 years. One of them was a lockout.
I'm just saying.
Emil Andre is Duncan Keith. Charlie just said it.
What I'm saying is that the idea that like guys can't come up at an older age and still be really good is faulty.
I would just like to know who they are in this organization's history.
Okay, well, the Flyers don't tend to develop defensemen well. Maybe in part because they've rushed them in the past.
Who?
Yoni Pikkinen, maybe?
Yoni Pikkinen? That was 20 years ago.
Well, you're saying in their history. I'm giving you defensemen.
Like Samuel Morin cooked for a while, never came up.
Ivan Provorov, possibly?
Everyone knew the Sam Morin pick was bad the second it was made, though. Like, that wasn't a question. Like,
it took like 3 coaching staffs in the NHL to get something out of Travis Sanheim. Just saying, like, I just don't know who these players. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it this.
I'm not
who
ready.
Is this guy?
I'm not ready to write off Emil Andre.
I'm not
because
writing
he's
him
not here.
off. I think making determinations at the draft because there's a guy available at 12 because of some dude you got a few years ago, not in the first round. Like,
no, it was the second round.
Is in the AHL. Like,
and they like him.
Okay,
they're looking at him as part of their future defense core, and that's 3 guys who they view as smaller. So they were basically looking at it as, we're not going to take another smallish defenseman unless we think he's a stud. They don't think Bouillon is a stud. My disagreement is I think he is. But like, if Sam Dickinson was there at 12, I think they take him.
Oh, I think Dickinson is one of the major reasons they.
Small.
Yeah. But forward's a little bit.
I know, but just getting back to this pick, like as Flyers fans, I feel strongly that over the last 5-10 years, we should have learned a lesson that like analyzing this information 2 days after the draft is kind of useless. Like there have been consensus top 3-4 picks that turned out to be shit, like Nolan Patrick. There have been players that go later in the draft that everyone thought was going to suck that turn out to be very good hockey players, like Claude Giroux. Like maybe we just need to say like, all right, maybe this isn't what I would have done, because me on Twitter, I read a lot of stories and I read what Charlie wrote, so I wanted them to take Steve Boone, but I don't fucking know. Nobody does. And none of us are going to know for like 3 years.
It's not
so we can revisit this and be mad about it later, but like it could be fine.
Jett Luchanko might end up being one of the top 3 players in this draft. I have no goddamn idea. That I'm not disagreeing with the pick. It's the process used to get here is more what I'm worried about. Like, I don't know, if Emil Andre was going to be something that we really had to account for, like he'd be in the NHL.
Well, see, here's my counter to that though, because obviously one of the things that we justifiably give the Flyers a ton of shit for is flubbing the Nolan Patrick pick. And what's the story of the Nolan Patrick pick? The story of the Nolan Patrick pick was, you had a guy at 2 who was the consensus top 2 pick, who, if the Flyers had passed on Nolan Patrick the day of the draft, us, and then we in the media in general, would have absolutely raked the Flyers over the coals.
Lost our minds.
For how dare you not take
what are you doing?
The guy. Because he was the guy and everybody says he was the guy, so they took the guy. And Ron Hextall, by all accounts, more or less overruled his scouts, who told him Miro Heiskanen is the better of the 2 players. He's the higher on our board. And Hextall was like, nah, I'm taking Patrick because we need a center. And also, you can't say this didn't influence him even a little bit. If I don't take Patrick, I'm going to get killed for it. And then in retrospect, it's like, well, man, they should have friggin' taken Heiskanen, not just because of the injuries that Patrick dealt with, but because it looks like Heiskanen is just a damn much better player than Patrick ever was going to be, even without the concussions and everything. And what we've said is like, you know what? It's your job to be right. It's your job. Who cares what the consensus was? Who cares what everybody said Patrick was going to be? It's your job to be right, and we're going to give you shit because you fucked up. Well, in this case, it seems like the Flyers, I think Bouillon's better. I thought Patrick was better back then than Heiskanen. And so did most of the public people in terms of Bouillon versus Luchanko. What did Briere do this time? He went with his scouts. His scouts think Luchanko is going to be the better player. Right now, I think he's wrong because I think Booyum is going to be better. But at least he went with his scouts.
Yeah.
At least, he picked the guy who he thinks is going to be better. And a lot of this depends on how much you trust Danny Briere, and that's fair. Maybe he hasn't earned your trust. And if so, you're going to be more angry than the people who he has earned their trust. But he went with the guy who he thinks is going to be better, and we'll see if he's right.
And we talked about this while you were out, Charlie, that a lot of people seemed pissy that he seemed to be drafting for need because the Flyers need centers. But my argument is that he's drafting for need 3 years from now.
Right.
Like, he's thinking about a Michkov team, and what does he need? He needs someone to get him the puck. And by everything that I've read over the last few days, Luchanko's very good.
Seems like he's a hell of a
getting
distributor.
people the puck, which they're going to need. So, will he be the best number one center that comes out of this draft? Probably not. But if he fits in 3 years onto a Flyers team that needs a guy that's able to get our sick goal scorer the puck over and over again, that seems good. So maybe they are thinking about building that team and not building this team.
They definitely are. I mean, they have a vision of what they want this team to be. And they're just really high on Luchanko. I mean, it's abundantly clear that they've loved him all draft year.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked him at the draft, that's Briere at the draft, did Luchanko's very strong performance at the under-18 World Championships influence your decision to take him? And Briere basically said, no, actually, we didn't want to see him do well at the under-18s because we kind of were hoping we could get him with the second first-round pick. That's what we were hoping all year. And then when he goes out there and blows it away at the under-18s, it's like, well, shit, now we might have to friggin' take him with the first one if we like him.
Of course, Florida gets all the way to and wins the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
So if you're hoping for 22 and it ends up at 32, a little bit of a different situation.
Indeed.
Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Listen, I wear Shady Rays pretty much every day. I need sunglasses to drive. I also need a GPS wherever I'm going. Constantly lost without the GPS. When you talk about these crystal clear optics, I know a lot of times a polarized shade, you look at maybe your little nav screen in your car, whatever it might be, and it really throws off your eyes. My wife, very sensitive to that. I am reading this advertisement straight off of my laptop screen right now, and guess what? It's not messing with my eyes at all. I'm able to do this read. So I think you're going to love your Shady Rays no matter what you use them for. And if your Shady Rays ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements, which is great for me because I lose shit constantly. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free. Within 30 days, there's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. At Shady Rays. Use that code, PHLY, 35% off. It's a hell of a deal. I got a couple pairs with it myself. That was one of them.
All right, let's get to the super chat.
Couple super chats.
Yeah, we had this one that we got at the beginning of the show from Anthony. When we talk about draft recap, can we compare the floor ceiling for Helenius versus Jett Luchanko? This is an interesting question.
It is.
Because there's really, when you're breaking down the Luchanko pick, there's really two either-ors. First, there is either you take Booyum or Luchanko, because they ended up with Luchanko and they could have taken Booyum at 12. But they trade out at 12. They pick up a third-round pick, which they end up essentially turning into the Spencer Gill pick, because they moved up to get Spencer Gill in the late second, and which I actually like that pick. I think it was a solid pick. They go down to 13. Then they have the opportunity to get either Helenius or Jett Luchanko, because now you're like, all right, we're picking a center. Helenius was the guy who was consensus higher on most public draft boards than Luchanko. They take Luchanko anyway. I, in retrospect, do not mind this. Even though, I had Helenius higher than Luchanko, to be sure, would have had no problem with Helenius. However, I do get the argument, because I probably agree with this, that the reason why I had Helenius higher on my board than Luchanko is because I think Helenius has significantly higher certainty to be a top 6 forward.
Okay.
But I think Luchanko has a better chance of being a top line center. You know what I mean? Like, if I was to break down Helenius' plausible outcomes, the reason why I was not super duper high on Helenius was that I found it pretty difficult to imagine him as a 1C. I found it very easy to imagine him as a 2C. Like, we're maybe talking about like a 10% chance he could be a 1C, a 50% chance he could be a 2C, a 40% chance he's a solid bottom 6 center, and then a 10% chance he busts. Whereas Luchanko, we're talking about like, maybe there's a 20% chance he is a 1s. Or, that's probably too high. Yeah, but there's a significantly, at least 10 to 15% chance that he has the tools. He's extremely fast. He has really good playmaking ability. I think he has much better skating ability than Helenius and flashes much more dynamic playmaking ability than Helenius. And that's something that could potentially turn into a 1C much easier than I think Helenius, who I'm like, he's your 2C set and forget it for the next 10 years. I think there is a pretty high possibility that Luchanko could end up just being a really good bottom 6 center. That he's just a high energy 3C, 4C type. Like, his floor to me is Poehling. Which, that would suck at 13. It's still an NHL player, but it would suck at 13. However, I think Luchanko also has the tools where if it all comes together for him, he could be a much better player than I think Helenius had the plausible upside, for me at least, to be. So if we're talking about taking big swings and you're going between Helenius and Luchanko, I get taking the bigger swing on Luchanko.
That's like, I remember us talking about NHL readiness with Helenius.
Yes.
And it's
he could have gotten here very soon.
He might be able to come over almost right away.
Yep.
If not now, a year from now.
Yep.
But it seems like, and then what he is what he's going to be for the most part.
Yep.
Whereas
Anton Lundell type.
Yeah, given Luchanko's the age, he's not even 18 years old yet. Also the speed and playmaking, maybe a project, but higher ceiling.
Yes.
Like, that's kind of what this felt like in terms of projecting why maybe they made the determination. Also, they changed the offense last year. They changed it to be a rush-based offense. Well, you got one of the fastest guys. I know, since I have been aware of the Philadelphia Flyers, there's one thing they've never been, and that's a fast team.
Yeah.
We've been begging them to get faster for 30 years.
And they are. They actually are.
Like, now, like, they're faster right now. Like, Travis Konecny, Owen Tippett, these guys can fucking fly. Look at the defensemen they have. Ryan Poehling as well. Like, and the defensemen they have, all pretty decent skaters. Sanheim and Drysdale, like, legitimately plus skaters.
Yeah.
Like,
York is a good skater.
York is at least, like, good. Like, the baseline is a lot higher than you. Rasmus Ristolainen, especially for his size. He can fucking skate.
Yeah, he's okay.
Like, the baseline higher, they have raised the pace of this team. Like, the first thing on the Elite Prospects Draft Guide is, as soon as you add Jett Luchanko to your lineup, your pace increases twofold. Like, he is a dude who, if we're going to continue this rush-based offense thing, he could be a weapon.
Yeah, and Helenius is not a bad skater. Like Alex Appleyard said that his top speed is quite high. He's not dynamic. You watch him, and I watch him quite a lot, you don't see a dynamic element to his game, and that's not just playmaking and skill, that's also skating ability. He doesn't have that burst. When you watch Luchanko, he plays fast. He can fly. And the big hope with him, you hinted at this as well, Bill, he's young for his draft year. He's one of the younger guys in the draft. Those guys tend to have higher upside because they just haven't had as much of a developmental length as other guys have in their class. And the optimistic argument for Luchanko, because his draft year production, just fine. Over point per game, it's solid. It's not what you necessarily love to see out of a top 15 pick. That said, I believe it was better than Beckett Seneca's, and Seneca went third. So
that was wild.
Whatever. Yeah. I guess, upside matters to them, and that was a kind of a crazy pick to me, but whatever. Anyway, Luchanko played for a really bad team. And the argument you can make that I think the Flyers will make, probably more behind closed doors because they don't want to slander the the hallowed name of the Guelph Storm. That team is bad. And their argument would be if he was on a better team with better teammates, the 74 points or so he had would be 90.
Yeah. And I've seen that from lots of people who watch way more juniors hockey than me, which would be the World Juniors and nothing else. Listen, man, how many hours are there in the day?
I agree. I'm with you.
You think I'm watching the Guelph Storm? And like that's why I am not upset about the Luchanko pick. It was just when I saw like the reasoning we didn't take Zeev is these other guys who might not be as good. It was really just the inclusion of Andre that drove me nuts. I'm like, because what is this guy gonna be? Like, come on. What do we really think? Let's all be honest with each other. If you the best possible outcome for Emil Andre is what?
See, I guess
second power play, third pair guy. I'm not that worried about him.
I think he can be a second pair quality defenseman. But my point is I actually came away from that feeling like, I'm happy they still like Andre because I wasn't sure how much they still did.
Absolutely. I hope he turns out. It's just like there's no way he's as good as Zeev. So what's the point?
Who knows?
Who knows?
I think Zeev Williams is going to be great, but he might not be.
You've been complaining about how small they are, William.
And that, so trade one of the dudes who isn't as good so you can have, if we're going to have small guys, let's make them dynamic small guys.
Fair.
And listen, again, I don't know. It's just more the thought process that I had an issue with. But the Jett Luchanko pick, I want them to be fast. They're going to be faster. That's cool. I'm fine with it. I have no idea if Constant Helenius can play. I like his name. I also like Jett Luchanko's name, so it's kind of a wash.
He made our list too,
They
right?
both made the list. Yeah, I think they were both in the top 5. So that's a wash, you know?
It's a wash.
I'm just saying, I just didn't love the thinking in that quote, but it wasn't the way everyone else was upset about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't we can't be too small. It's like, well, I agree with that. Yeah. I'm not upset about that. It's just Emil Andre, okay. But maybe he's awesome. I don't know. Just on the other draft picks, listen, go to allphly.com, become a diehard, read Charlie's breakdown of the draft if you want
Been doing the right.
If you want Charlie's written like 8 articles in the last week.
Seriously.
Maybe 12, I don't know. But go to allphly.com, become a diehard. I tell you about the other benefits all the time. You get Charlie's awesome analysis. That should be enough for you, goddammit. Anyway, is there anyone else that you think was either a great value pick or kind of a head scratcher that you think deserves mentioning on the show today?
Yeah,
we have the rest of the week to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I didn't love their draft. But again, there's only so much you can do in the moment. The pick that really, I think, rubbed me the wrong way, because the other ones are fine. I didn't like the Jack Berglund pick, and that
seems to be one that's causing some.
I watched him. He did not make my top 50 board, but that wasn't because I didn't know him. It was just because I didn't view him high enough for him to make my top 50. He's the pick where the process concerned me the most, because we interviewed Brent Flair after day 2, and I straight up asked Brent, "What do you guys view his upside to be?" And his answer was, "Well, our guys are hoping he could be a 3C." Possibly more. I don't love taking a guy who you think his probable ceiling is 3C in the second round. The reason why I like the Spencer Gill pick is because that's a big swing on a project, a guy who has legitimately good tools, who hasn't quite put it all together yet. He's a big right-handed shooting defenseman with serious offensive instincts, with physicality, who you need to improve the skating a little bit. He needs to get significantly stronger because he's rail thin for his size. But if he hits, he could be a top 4 defenseman. He could be a top half of the lineup defenseman if he hits. Ooh. The reason why he slipped as far as he did is because there's a lot of risk there. But I like that pick. To take Berglund, who, if everything goes well, he's a fine, slow third-line center. I would have been happier if they would have taken a swing on, and it doesn't even have to be a guy I loved. My preferred choice there would have been Teddy Stiga. I love Teddy Stiga.
That was a name that came up.
I had a first-round grade on him. I think he can be a really, really good player, potentially even a top 6 forward, at the very least a middle 6 forward. But if they would have taken someone who I look at and I'm like, yeah, there's a top half of the lineup ceiling if all goes right, rather than we're hoping he's a 3C, I would have been significantly happier. The other picks, Gill, perfectly fine. Rahonen, I don't even know really how to pronounce his name yet, to be totally honest with you.
I took a lot of shots at it at the draft party.
I've been flying around. I have not learned how to pronounce his name yet. I will learn at development camp. But that's fine. You know what? There's upside there. He's got size in the 4th round. You're taking swings. I get it. Noah Powell, you're going with a redraft guy, but he's got real talent. You got to fix the skating, but in the 5th round, fuck it. Take a shot on a guy who's power forward, power playmaker potential with really good hands, good instincts, who was the breakout player in the USHL this year. Paltov, basically what Flair told us after the draft is Kenny Hudakov, who is their Russian scout, pounded the table for him and more or less said, get this guy. He's going to be a stud. I don't know. I certainly have watched 0 minutes of this guy. I know nothing about his skill set, but hey, you know what? Ken Hudakov, I bet, did a lot of work behind the scenes to get them Matvei Michkov, both drafting and also getting him to come over here. If throwing him a bone is letting him pick the 6th round guy, you know what? Go for it. You deserve it, bud. Take a lap.
Just 5 of the 7 picks forwards, and it seems as if just even in the 1st round, Luchanko, speed, but he ain't a sniper. He scores his goals when he does. He's more of a playmaker. Yeah. But when he scores, it's in and around the net, whether it's on a break or he gets there. It seems as if whether it's a guy who gets to the net with his give and go game like Danny Briere or just straight power, getting to that fucking net was very much an archetype that they wanted. Yeah. And when we talked about how this team changed their offense this year, rush first, especially top 3 lines, rush-based offense. The only line that could sustain a forecheck at all, get a second opportunity every now and then, was Cates, Hathaway, and Paling when they were together. Yeah. Filling out the lines. And who knows? You're talking about guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. Good chance they never play in the NHL. Really good chance.
Most likely they won't.
But it's a player archetype that's we need more dudes who do this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really have a problem with that, just based on what I'm reading in their scouting reports. Whether it's a faster guy, a more skilled guy, or just a power forward, these dudes can get to the net and maybe play a little physical behind it. Seems good.
Yeah, we'll get to see what happens. We should, be rooting for all of these guys to be good.
Okay, do we have anything else on the agenda, or should we just close it out with more super chats?
I have to tell you about Parks Casino, because Parks Casino is perfect for after work get-togethers, date night, or even girls' night out. You can sip on tantalizing drinks and soak up those warm weather good vibes right now at Parks Casino. Parks Casino, this is how you win. It's my casino of choice. Parks now offers an epic $5 happy hour with great food and drink every Wednesday through Sunday at the Liberty Bell Gastropub. Back when I worked at another outlet, we used to do remotes at Parks weekly. I often was the engineer for those. That Gastropub, lots and lots of great food. And right now, you can enjoy $5 drafts of Forged Stout, Victory Seasonal, or Parks Pilsner, $5 glasses of Albertoni Cabernet, and enjoy the drink of the summer, $5 Twisted Tea Frozen Whiskey Arnold Palmer's. I could kind of go for one of them right now. Plus, feast on flavor-packed $5 small plates of braised short rib sliders, hot honey chicken sliders, or rotisserie chicken flatbreads. The all-new Parks Casino Epic $5 happy hour happening right now. And summer is approaching. All roads lead to Parks, the #1 casino in Pennsylvania. Parks has 3,200 state-of-the-art slots, 115 live table games, a beautiful poker room, plus a collection of incredible award-winning restaurants. I could go through all that. Go to betparks.com. Check out the events calendar. So much happening every week at Parks. You're not going to want to miss it. Visit parkscasino.com. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Parks Casino, this is how you win. All right. Anything else here that we need to get to? The Eric Johnson thing.
We never talked about Eric Johnson.
People are outraged.
People have been outraged about that for the 3 weeks that it's been heavily rumored.
Yeah, 1 year, $1 million for Eric Johnson. They made it official on Twitter a little bit before the show. He's 13 games shy of 1,000. I'm hoping he only plays the 13 games. This would piss me off if we didn't have last year of Mark Stahl as evidence that unless we need to, he's not going to play. Like, Mark Stahl played 35 games. I'm fine with that.
They clearly think there's some kind of value in having a defense daddy for these kids.
Yeah.
And Eric Johnson's the new defense daddy.
I mean, the argument that you hear from the fans who are very opposed to this, and I have a couple of people in my mentions telling me this in like the last half an hour of how many of these guys do you need? How many veterans do you need? And they're the people who just want to trade everybody, basically.
Of course.
The thing is that like having Scott Lawton as the culture building vet doesn't do much in terms of like helping Cam York know how to play a 2-on-1 or helping, Jamie Drysdale learn how to box someone out in front of the net. That's the value they think an Eric Johnson provides because he's actually a defenseman. Like, Nick Seeler isn't here because he's the defenseman daddy. Nick Seeler is here because he blocks shots and because he's actually a pretty darn good hockey player. Like, he's not, you can't just lump everyone into this culture thing. Like, oh, well, they're only here for the culture. Like, nah, Scott Lawton's here because, number one, they think he's a good player. I know he didn't have a great year last year, but they think he's a good player. And number two, because he creates that welcoming environment in the locker room that they really want. Nick Seeler is here because they think he's good and they think they have him on a good contract. And also, he does a lot of the little things in terms of like blocking shots and selling out his body and things like that, where the coach can point to and say, that's what you got to do on a nightly basis to maximize your potential at the NHL level. Garnet Hathaway, again, they also think he's good. And also, they look at him as a guy who, great dude in the locker room, nice guy. But like, these are all guys kind of playing different roles. I get the argument of like, well, how many do you need? But like, they're good players too.
He's gonna sit in the press box, dude. Who cares?
That's the thing with this one specifically.
This is
like,
a press box
if this
guy.
was a Chris Van de Velde situation where he's going to play 81 games straight, I would have an issue with it. Based on the Mark Stahl usage, I don't believe that's an issue, so I'm not as upset about it.
Right.
The other part of this, just in terms of overall, as Charlie was just the culture guys, the veterans. I've made my peace with the I'd rather just you know what, Emile Andre, if we're so high on him, fucking play him. Here's the thing. By kicking the can the way that they didn't love this draft class, but like, it's very obvious, like, oh yeah, those guys next year, we want them, and we're kind of, that pushes everything a year. This is gonna take longer than we all wish it would, and that's probably a good thing. Like, they're not gonna half-ass it. They're not gonna just Band-Aid this thing. They're going to build it slowly with the players that they think will fit and ultimately, hopefully, build a champion. We'll see if they're right. If they have these dudes, they're not boxing out anyone here.
What happened?
ELC has happened.
The ELC has happened. I need to
He's coming, baby.
Talk for a second while I find the thing I need to read. I don't have it in front of me.
Breaking news.
There's only so long I could talk about this because Danny is speaking at 3:30.
All right, so we got to go.
But, no, we can do a little bit longer. It's just like we can't turn this into another half an hour.
No, we can't.
I got to leave.
This emergency segment is brought to you by Indeed. Yeah. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And we have him. Matvey Michkov is officially a Philadelphia Flyer. The outrage and consternation over him not having signed the ELC can now end. We can all point our outrage at Eric Johnson now.
Didn't I tell everyone last week that this was probably going to be a July 1st thing? Didn't I report that?
Charlie, it doesn't matter.
Didn't I report
You
that?
think I remember what happened yesterday?
I'm not telling this to you.
I don't remember how we started the show.
I'm saying this to everyone who was like, why isn't he signed yet? And I said, probably next week because they're not sure if they're allowed to do it until July 1st. It's July 1st. Guess what happened? Matvey Michkov is signed.
The only man I trust, ladies and gentlemen.
And if you want to celebrate, because we deserve to celebrate this, the best way to celebrate it is go to PHLYlocker.com and get yourself one of these Michkov Mania shirts. Because I'm an egomaniac, Charlie, you did a great job with the Mad Russian design. That was your baby. This one's me, and I want to outsell Charlie, goddammit. So you need to go to PHLYlocker.com, get yourself a Michkov Mania shirt, because it's going to be running wild all season long. He signed, that means he's here, right? He's going to be at Dev Camp this week?
No,
Probably not.
He's not on the development camp. roster, which they announced this morning.
It means he's going to Alexei Kolosov and being like, listen, buddy.
Yeah, come on.
Just come with me.
Come on.
I'll upgrade you to first class.
Together?
You see this deal I just signed?
Yeah, come on.
I got all these bonuses. You can fly with me first class. Come on, let's go, my friend.
We'll be besties.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a charter,
I would imagine
right?
there are a
They're not
lot of
flying
bonuses.
Commercial.
A lot of bonuses in this
I'm sure.
contract. I would imagine that he's probably going to achieve as many of them as he possibly can because they're going to set it up so that he's going to be able to maximize the money he can make, because I'm sure that there was some money on his side tossed back to Scott St. Petersburg to get him out of that contract. But the most important thing is that Matvei Michkov is under contract. Matvei Michkov is going to be a Philadelphia Flyer starting next season, because I do not envision a scenario where he starts out in the AHL. He's going to be a Flyer, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
If he starts out in the AHL, Charlie, I am going to lose my shit. I'm
just waiting for John Tortorella to not like his work ethic in camp.
I am going to fight John Tortorella. No, I'm not.
I will go
no,
into
I am
his
not.
office.
That man is, I don't care if he's
I'll
only
fight
4.5 feet tall. He
I
is
was
a
gonna say,
scary
he's
guy.
not that much taller than me.
He's a scary
I'll
guy.
fight him.
He's quite intimidating.
You heard it, John.
But no, Michkov is here. That's awesome.
Very exciting.
The ELC is signed. That is a lot of fun. Let's get to these. The major UFA signings around the league. You can hear about that anywhere. I'm sure we'll get to it this week or something.
Listen to 32 Thoughts.
Yeah, just listen to Elliot, and that's what I'm going to tell you about Stamkos in Nashville. Let's get to whatever the super chats we have left from Blinson, as someone else said. Jamie Bascal said on Twitter. His work.
I beg people to consider the source. So I looked up this tweet. No, I looked up this tweet because I wanted to see what he was talking about. He tweeted that his tourist visa probably ran out, so he had to go back to Belarus. No.
That strikes me as speculation.
That's 100% speculation. And also, he wasn't here for a year working on a tourist visa. I'm sure he had a work visa.
Yeah, again, this is something I don't know the details.
Just because people tweet a lot doesn't mean they know stuff. Okay, only listen to Charlie.
The work visa
Not
thing.
Only me.
Only
me,
Charlie.
Kelly.
I don't know what
there
it's
are
like.
other people.
No, just Charlie.
I don't know what it's like now because things in Russia have changed. You don't necessarily need a work visa for development camp. They said Ivan Fedotov didn't have one to do development camp. So it could be any number of things. We don't know. Hopefully we get some clarification at some point. The next one from, oh wow, we have a bunch.
There's
from
so many.
Stuart Bell.
Stuart.
Love the content, guys. You keep me up to date in the UK. Have a cup of tea on
I
me.
love the cup of tea. That is so UK. I love it, Stuart. I thought it would thank you.
I was hoping he'd say a
Charlie,
spot
put
of
the
tea.
kettle on.
Put the kettle on.
You're a tea drinker. I can see Kelly being a tea
Do we
drinker.
have to do the pinky thing?
Yeah, I tried to make myself into a tea person once. It didn't stick. I'm a coffee person.
I need the
disgusting American.
I need
He
iced
paid us
coffee too.
£5. What if I'm obsessed with this? Stuart Bell.
That's like
What a gem.
$100.
I know, it's a lot of money.
Based on whatever my transaction fees were when I got back from
right.
England, I was like, "Holy shit! I spent like double what I thought I spent."
Oops.
All right, thank you, Stuart. Now from who is Mike Mall? Is the Flyers' attempt to trade up to the top 10 a tacit acknowledgement that their competitive rebuild is a bad strategy for a team that needs stars?
Ooh, this was a talking point that was very popular in our Discord from the people in our Discord that are very, very negative about the Flyers.
The answer is no.
Well, this is a question that could be an entire episode.
Could.
My short answer is, and I will go back to what I've been saying for the last month: top 10 picks. Pointed to the sign. They don't get traded.
Charlie is going to be tapping that sign.
And the problem was that because there were so many rumors, a lot of the online section of the fan base convinced themselves that the Flyers were inevitably going to trade up in the top 10, got excited about it, and then when it didn't happen, got real annoyed, and then started this whole thing. I was always skeptical that the Flyers were ever going to be able to trade up in the top 10. I said this on multiple occasions. I said it a lot in our Discord. I said it on the show. I think I even tweeted it out on Twitter a couple times, even though I'm trying to be on Twitter less because it's good for my sanity.
Oh, I love that. I truly love that for you.
So is it a tacit acknowledgement that the competitive rebuild is a bad strategy? No, it is not a tacit acknowledgement on their part, because their view is that, look, we had guys in the top 10 we liked, so we were going to try our best to move up, even knowing it was unlikely we were actually going to be able to move up. So is it a tacit acknowledgement on their part? No. Is it does it speak to one of the concerns about their plan? Of course it does.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about that for years, that like, okay, they're trying to do this without getting top 10 picks. And if they don't get top 10 picks, which is where you have the highest likelihood of getting stars, it's a concern. And it remains a concern. But like, I don't think the fact that they tried to is them acknowledging that all those concerns are like correct. They tried to move up into the top 10 because they wanted to try to move up into the top 10.
Right. Why wouldn't you try? And this was a year where I feel like there were way more rumors about these top picks being moved than normal years. Like this was the year where it kind of seemed like, oh shit, maybe they will. Obviously none of them were true. However, it would be malpractice for him not to hear that they were shopping the 4 and try to move up.
I think
why wouldn't you try?
I think the way the Flyers looked at it this year, and obviously it didn't work because, again, point to the sign. Top 10 picks rarely get traded. Top 5 picks never get traded. Going back to what I was saying, though, I think they kind of wanted to try to have it both ways because, like, it's not that Briere and Jones and everybody, it's not that they don't realize that you have a higher likelihood of getting a star player in the top 10. They know that. Everybody knows that. It's just a fact. They just think that the tear it down tank to get the top 10 picks, in their mind, and again, you can disagree with this if you want, in their mind, it's counterproductive. Because the benefit you get from getting the stars is outweighed by the fact that then you have nothing around them, your culture suffers, and then those guys don't develop into the guys they could be unless they are Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin style. We're going to be good if we play literally in an organization with a gigantic pile of shit sitting outside of our facility because they're just that good. They think that the negatives of tanking outweigh the benefits. But the way they look at it is, hey, if we can not tank, be pretty good, and then move up in the draft and get those top 10 picks anyway and get the best of both worlds, we're going to give it a shot. Now, do they know that top 10 picks rarely get traded and that it's a long shot? Sure. But it's not going to stop them from trying to get the best of both worlds. Now, they didn't, and does it remind you that it's going to be harder to get those stars if they're not picking in the top 10 because of the way that they're doing this? Sure, it serves as a reminder.
And there's no guarantee that you get one.
True.
And
I don't, but to answer your question, Mike, no, I don't think it's a tacit acknowledgement from them that secretly they know this is going to fail and they're just lying to everyone. They think that their plan is the best plan, but would make their plan an even better plan is if they can not tank and still get the top 10 picks in other ways.
One of the things I wanted to bring up today, because I saw it on Twitter a lot, like closing deals being a concern for Danny. And I think people took a lot of the rumors as something like the team is putting out there to get fans excited.
No.
And like, that's not the case. And I put it to Kelly before the show, like, Danny Briere, have you ever like gone to Amazon and put some shit in your cart just to check the price? Like, yeah, all right, Columbus, maybe you want to move that top 4 pick. Let's see what they want for it.
Yeah.
Like, and then that phone call gets reported as, oh, the Flyers are trying to move up. And everyone thinks like, Danny's doing this, and then like, gets cold feet at the end and says, no, never mind. Like, maybe he's just checking the price because it would be stupid not to.
Right.
And then when it's 3 first-round picks, it's like, well, we like next year's draft better. And simply by, as we've talked about, like, the Devils and maybe 2 or 3 other teams in the East are going to be better definitely than they were this year. The Flyers will have a top 10 pick without being any worse, just because other teams got better. Like, that's a definite possibility.
Okay, before we get to the last couple of super chats, I do want to know, because this is very funny, that Matvei Michkov on his Instagram posted a story of basically reposted the story of him signing his contract with the line clearly written by him, "Let's go Flyers."
I would
die
for him.
That is extremely endearing.
I am obsessed with him.
Let's go
what
Flyers.
What a sweet child.
Let's get to this next super chat from Garrett Davis.
$20 Canadian, so like $3 US.
Just wanted to say, you 3 are back together, and your show is fantastic. The Michkov Mania t-shirts look deadly.
They sure do.
Thank you very much.
They sure do, Garrett.
They are
Thank
sick.
you.
PHLYlocker.com, Michkov Mania shirts. All right, let's get to the next super chat from UK Birds fan 01. Charlie, I need you to put a word into Danny about trading for Pinto, LOL.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the draft coverage all weekend. Matt Vay just got announced.
Let's get those beans,
UK Birds fan man wants Pinto. I'm going to be talking to Danny in about 45 minutes. I do not think I'm going to ask him about Shane Pinto, though. I'm sorry.
I got some tweets that I need to go to dev camp, and I'm like, I'm not doing that shit. That's Charlie's job. All right, and this next one from Gary B. Charlie has the Michkov ELC detail, has the Michkov ELC detail get announced.
I love you.
I'm sure it'll be up in a minute.
I love you, man. I very much appreciate you watching the show. Like you've watched me get the news while sitting here. I haven't looked at my phone. I haven't texted a source. I've done nothing. No, I have no idea. I'm sure I'll find out soon enough.
Danny's talking about 45 minutes. I gotta believe sometime between now and then, it's we're gonna know a little bit better about what the details
Gary,
are.
Unfortunately, I wish. And if you know a way for this to happen, like this information doesn't get beamed in my brain, I don't know.
All right. Is that it on Super Chats? All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Make sure you set those reminders so you never miss a live show. Little bit different schedule this week. In order to account for development camp, our shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday are all going to be at 4 o'clock. So make sure you're prepared for that. It won't be live at 1.
Oh, Michkov deleted the story and then reposted it. Let's go Flyers.
Nah, buddy.
Right.
We've got the screenshot.
Right. The internet doesn't forget.
It lives forever, and we love you for it.
Make sure you're following us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers and the podcast, PHLY Flyers, wherever you get those. That'll do it for us. Again, make sure you're here at 4 tomorrow. We're off for the 4th on Thursday, but Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. A little bit different this week. It's Michkov Day, baby.
Yay!
We did it. He has signed, and that is what matters most. So awesome. We can all go celebrate, and I am going to go celebrate with my wife down in Sea Isle. That'll do it for us.
Look at this guy.
I'll be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Until then, stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.